We'll go ahead and get started here. So again, today's topic is adopting a culture of change. So what we're really talking about here, of course, is how to implement, in this case, BIM 360, really any solution into an organization. But of course, today we're talking about construction solutions and focusing on the BIM 360 or the Autodesk Construction Cloud products here. All right, so let's get started with some brief introductions. So again, my name is Scott Burke. I am the AEC Cloud Solutions Program Manager here at Manage. So I work with our teams in relation to any of the Autodesk cloud-based construction and design-based tools. So I work with our internal staff to make sure that they have the necessary skills to help our clients. I do, of course, webinars and presentations like this, and I quite often lead the implementations of this technology at many and hundreds of different firms over my career, if not 1,000 at this point. And I've kind of been in the industry in the reseller channel for 20 years and been in the kind of real world before that for about 10 years, primarily as an architect, but also some construction and MEP too, but primarily architecture. And then the real star of our show today is Aaron, so I'll let Aaron introduce himself here.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. My name is obviously Aaron Phillips. I'm the Director of Virtual Design and Construction at Danis. I have been around the industry for around 23 years at this point in time. 16 of those years for the kind of the first part of my career was spent on the design side, working with an architectural and engineering firm and kind of working my way through being, kind of a intern architect all the way through to CAD management and then eventually BIM management and IT management as well. Made the switch to the light side or the dark side, depending on my audience, a little over 7 years ago, I guess. And doing a lot of fun stuff on the construction side now, where we're focused on design build projects, industrialized construction, and then obviously leveraging BIM and VDC as much as possible on all of our projects. And thanks for taking your time today and spending it with us and kind of hearing our story.
Great, thanks. And I really appreciate having you here today too. It's a great honor to have someone from the real world here. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So what I'm going to start with briefly here, but really this is mostly going to be about Aaron and his real world experiences, which is really the key here to this presentation, is something real, not just software here. So I just wanted to kind of set the stage here with, again, the problem with construction software today. So one of the biggest issues here, of course, is unclear communication lines between our teams. And the industry right now, the rework that we're doing because of mistakes, because of miscommunication, not having the right data and so on at the right time, is costing the construction industry over $15 billion a year. I mean, that's a lot of money. So what are some of the key problems, right? It's missing project data. So 62% of the professionals out there transfer data manually via spreadsheets. To this day, it's email, it's spreadsheets, it's separate independent programs. I see that all the time, even to this day, right? And then 30% of that data that we create during a project is pretty much lost by the time it gets over to the handover to the client. And a lot of that data is intended to be used for facilities management and other things like that, of course, too. But we're creating during a construction project a lot of valuable information as built, how things are actually put together as opposed to the design intent drawings, right? We're losing that data. And then there's lack of version control. That's probably the biggest problem in the field, especially with paper drawings. If you're walking around, the second that drawing's printed, it's out of date. It's the wrong information. Someone could have changed it the second it was printed. An hour later, someone updates it. The entire printed set is now invalidated because something changed. So again, 28% of construction companies, they still use, some project-based or cloud-based project management software, but 40% still use paper plans. And again, 35% of all construction projects during that project is going to be some major change that needs to be communicated to everyone, usually through the documents, right? The construction documents. Another issue, of course, is too many different technologies are being used. 25% of the companies out there have 5 or more different technologies that they're using. And 6% of the construction, only 6% of those companies have those separate products that actually communicate with each other. The vast majority, 94% here, right, of all companies out there have products that don't talk to each other at all. So Autodesk, of course, has a solution for this, which is currently it's BIM 360 Build, what we're talking about today, but really the overarching name, and it's just a rebranding that you probably already know about, is the Autodesk Construction Cloud, of which BIM 360 Build is one of the components within that, or just Build if you want. And then you can use either flavor, either the newer one or the existing platform. So right here, if we look at the things that BIM 360 Build covers, so of course it does the document management. We already does the version control, sharing the documents in the field and so on. But there's other tools for managing your issues, meeting minutes, submittal tracking, RFIs, daily reporting, safety management, quality control, asset tracking, which is focused primarily on commissioning. So we have the ability to track issues, assign individuals, make sure they're being addressed. We have a paper trail as to what was done, when it was done, who did it. The same with meeting minutes. We're able to track all our meeting minutes, create items in the meetings that are then assigned to people, assign to issues, assign RFIs. We can track the follow-up meetings and so on. We have a advanced submittal tracking tool here where we can allow people to submit, our shop drawings and attic, stock, looking for data, product information, anything that needs to be part of our transmittal process. We have full control over that, a central repository for all the data, who has been involved with it, who's reviewing, who is confirming these things. We have the RFI tracking, which is also a set process of people who manage the process versus the people who are in the review process. Again, fully tracked and integrated. Everyone has access based on their permissions. Quality control. So we have our checklist system, our forms that we fill out, and when there's problems, they automatically generate issues that need to get resolved. You can even sign off on the forms on the tablet devices. And again, this is all via that, I should mention that, via a tablet device. We have safety management, which is part of that. Quality control and safety management are using the forms. We have quality control checklists, we have safety checklists, or even forms you have to fill out that you've maybe even confirmed that you took a safety course. Those types of things could be tracked in here. So there's a safety violation. You can take a photo of fall protection issues or something, or electrical hazards or whatever, and you can track them and track that it's been also positively resolved or set up properly, right? We have daily reporting, so we can do our daily reporting from our different team members, can create their reports. And then again, we have asset tracking and equipment tracking. So equipment would be for the commissioning process, but this could also just be for placing furniture. You could use this to manage the installation of doors or managing a room, and then having that room having checklists associated with it, be punch lists, whatever, finishes, all those types of things. So these are all the key features that are in BIM 360. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. But really, this whole presentation though is really more about implementing the technology. So what are the same, and again, briefly, the major roadblocks in any type of technology adoption, but especially in the construction world. And of course, when Autodesk did the survey here, you can see the resource in the bottom here, a new survey highlighting challenges and opportunities in pre-construction and basically just construction in general, is when people were asked, what is the roadblock to adopting the new technology? And the number one answer was it's interrupting current projects and objectives, right? And changing the way you're doing things a little bit. That's going to be disruptive. It's the nature of things. Lack of training, that's another issue. I see this all the time at firms where they're having trouble using the software. Well, what's the biggest issue? Well, we never got any training, so we really don't know how to use it. And that kind of surprises me. I would think that if someone's going to invest in the technology, they'd invest in that training. And the last part here, and I think it's going to be a key part of the discussion today too, is it's followed by the resistance to adoption by end users. To me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is making sure that or I should say that the end users, because change is hard. It's always hard. Everyone want to resist it. The way I'm working is fine, right? So the end users can sometimes be the biggest roadblock, in my opinion, to adopting this new technology. So in my experience, that has to come from executive buy-in, right? It has to come from the top of the company saying, we need to move forward this to be competitive and so on. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to Aaron now, so he can start talking about how they did this in the real world. So Aaron, off to you.
Appreciate it. Sorry about that. I was muted for a second.
Yep, sure.
So you would think that as many virtual meetings as we've done, we would have figured that out yet. But just to kind of set the stage and give some context behind our story, for those that don't know, Danis is a larger regional construction firm with operations in the Midwest, in Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton, in the Carolinas through Raleigh, and then southeast in Jacksonville. Anywhere between 500 and 600 million a year in construction. About 600 plus employees, and we're a little over 100 years old now as a construction firm. And really, we focus on a lot of different projects. We have a pretty big footprint in healthcare, as well as data centers, critical infrastructure, commercial buildings. So we're kind of all over the place as far as what we will build and the different types of projects that we kind of get involved in. I came to Danis, like I said, a little over 7 years ago to start the VDC group. We did not have one before that, and was really trying to leverage kind of the past successes that I had at the firm I was in before, and really see how that was going to impact the way we did stuff at Danis. And you'll see some common themes as we talk about this, in assuming that kind of implementation works for everybody, and potentially how wrong I was at the very beginning and how we've adapted. So yeah, if you could go ahead and go to the next slide. This is basically our case study. So I guess go ahead into the next one. So when we first started discussing what we were going to do with the VDC group, when I got to Danis, I was pretty riled up. I had been presenting at different conferences on kind of a national basis, and talking about change, and talking about how we were going to fundamentally change the construction industry. And what's really interesting in what I had to learn very quickly is, stepping into a very successful construction company that is very good at doing what they do, and saying that you're going to fundamentally change what they do, really starts the conversation off on the wrong foot. I found out, in some cases found out the hard way. One, I was already kind of overcoming the idea of coming from the design world into the construction world, but now I'm telling them that they're going to be able to do their jobs better, faster. So right off the bat, I had to change kind of the language that I was using in how we were going to start communicating what we were trying to do. And like Scott said earlier, we were coming from multiple softwares being used to do various things. Some of it was being done in Excel spreadsheets, like submittal registries and RFI tracking. Some of it was being done in Prolog. Some of it was being done in some home-baked things, some in SharePoint. So it was kind of all over the place. And one of the first primary goals we had was to kind of clean that up and look at it as more of a kind of a corporate approach to everything. So when we started building out this plan, and really getting to the nitty gritty, and if you could go ahead and change slide, Scott, it was understanding kind of the who was going to be involved, and then how we were going to roll this out. And we actually, at least in my previous experience before coming to Danis, I had great success in getting enough executive buy-in to say, trust me on this, and then kind of leading more grassroots efforts. And I think that had a lot of success for us, because from the get-go, I knew very quickly the culture at Danis was very much of putting trust in the hands of our superintendents who are out building projects, and making sure that they could continue to get their job done as efficiently and effectively as possible. So we had a very targeted effort at the very beginning to meet with the superintendents, engage with them, and kind of getting everybody else somewhat on a little bit of a delay, to be honest with you, in kind of meeting their needs and goals. So it was very specific, that who kind of statement of working at that foreman and superintendent level. And one of the things I've been most proud about with our implementation at Danis is we've never actually come in and demanded that a project team use something or do something. To the point where I got in a little bit of trouble actually when I first started, because when we implemented BIM 360 Field, Classic Field and Classic Glue, about a month and a half after I started. And I was told that I could only require it on 3 projects. And I said, okay, fine. I like to use a lot of just good old-fashioned high school psychology, in that you talk to and put technology, new processes in the hands of some of your loudest, most vocal people, and let them almost sell the idea for you, because everybody wants to be a part of the cool kids club, and that's kind of where that high school psychology comes into effect. And what we did is we had targeted 3 different projects and got them, kind of engaged in the iPad and this kind of common data environment, and got them really excited to the point where they were talking about it in other meetings, whether as a kind of a corporate safety meeting, a corporate QA/QC meeting, or any kind of cross-discipline or cross-project meetings. They were talking about all the fun and cool stuff that they were doing with BIM 360. And again, we kind of let them drive their own value statement, and not tell them what they were going to do with it or tell them the benefit of it, but let them kind of understand and realize it themselves. Be kind of their right-hand man as they were walking around out on the job sites, and be there for questions so that they didn't get frustrated, but to ultimately let them kind of drive that. And what happened was, about 6 or 7 months into this implementation, I actually got called into the boardroom and said, what the heck are you doing, Phillips? There's like 7 or 8 projects that are using BIM 360, and we got more coming. We told you could only use it on 3. And I said, well, no, that's actually not what you said. You said that I could only require it on 3 projects. I didn't require it on the other projects. They asked to be involved in it because they saw value through someone else's kind of lens that's in their peer group. And I kind of skirted that a little bit, but it was really effective at the very beginning to understand that the harder you push, sometimes the harder somebody pushes back. So we were giving them kind of their own ability to implement this and push it through. So if you can switch to the next slide, Scott. A part of understanding our implementation plan was really my understanding and maturation process of understanding the Danis culture. And I did a presentation at the AGC conference 2 years ago, where I talked about how culture trumps strategy, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit later. But it was understanding that Danis culture and understanding the things that were important to the superintendents, important to the foremen, all the way up through that was important to our executives, who were ultimately responsible for how these projects performed across all the different aspects of our company. So we really started having conversations with a lot of our field folks and a lot of the executives to kind of understand where their problem spots were, where their trouble spots were, where they felt like they didn't have a grasp on something, that they were more reactionary versus proactively engaging. And then we tried to match those up with various features and functions within BIM 360 Field and Glue, and then use those as those kind of drivers for that adoption or that kind of change. And it evolved. It wasn't I have a hard time putting a plan in place at the very beginning of any kind of implementation cycle and then rigidly sticking to every single step. I think that you need a little bit of play within there to adapt to the various types of teams, the various types of clients, and also just the personalities on the projects. A very smart man that I got a chance to work with from Autodesk back in the day, Chuck Mees, told me very early on in my career of adopting technology that there's 4 T's on a project, and you really should only change 1 T at a time when you're implementing something. And the 4 T's were team, technology, type, and team, technology, type, and time, excuse me. And really, if you're going to try to do a project faster than you've ever done, don't change any of the other 3 T's. Or if you're going to change the team up and introduce new personalities into it, then try not to do any of the other T's. So we kind of kept that in mind also moving forward. And Scott, if you go to the next one, this idea of an evolving plan, and it really boiled down to creating a sandbox and creating some boundaries that our guys could work within, and give them the freedom to adjust as they go. And then as long as they were willing to provide that feedback, when I started to build out our team at Danis, we have a strict policy of we never tell someone no, but we do give them hints and tricks to try to guide them through the process. If someone says, hey, I need to do this, say, yeah, I hear you, that's awesome, here's how we would like to do that, or here's how we've done it in the past to be successful, rather than say, no, you can't do that, or no, you're not allowed to do that. Can't and allowed are truly 2 separate things, and telling someone that they can't do it is okay. Well, help me find a way to execute that. Then telling someone that you're not allowed to do that, that instantly starts to put them on the defense. And especially again, when you're entrusting millions and millions of dollars of construction into that person's hands, and you're then telling them you can't trust me to do something on the system, that really puts the conversation on kind of its back heel. So Scott, you can go ahead and move to the next one. The idea, again, talking about this culture versus strategy, and understanding that anybody can implement software change at any firm, but the success really depends on their understanding and adjusting the strategy to the culture of the company. Every strong, important company that I've ever run into across all industries generally has a very good, strong culture. And that is down to just the foreman, the superintendents understanding kind of the mission, vision, value statement within that firm, and understanding what they're trying to accomplish, and all working towards that common goal. And again, adjusting the strategies to match up with that. So Scott, if you could do the next one, and going back to the idea that language and tone matter when implementing new technologies, and implementing new processes. Because again, when I first came in, it was, we're going to fundamentally change this, we're going to drive this, here's these big mega trends, and we're behind, we need to catch up, and oh, you get, oh really, okay. So I've been doing this very successfully, making money, doing quality projects with very happy customers. I think at the time we were at like 85 or 90% repeat clients on our business, our book of business. And you're going to tell me that I'm going to change everything in the way I'm doing it. So instead of change, we switched to enhance. We're going to make more efficient. We're going to help you do your job more efficiently. We're going to help you realize the benefits of more technology on a project to do your job easier. We're going to make it to where you're not spending a 10-hour day chasing down answers. You're only spending an 8-hour day. So we're going to try to give you some of that time back to you to get this done. So, kind of understanding that language, that tone in the implementation, and then, really looking at the right buttons to push. Because again, when you're rigidly controlled by a implementation strategy without any flexibility, you're going to run into personalities that that just will not respond to the method that you're doing at that time. So, and that's especially true, I think, on the construction side. There's tons of stories, and it borders and parallels back when I was a parent. We had to walk both ways uphill in the snow, barefooted, blah blah blah. And really, that stems from the fact that experience is a great teacher of lessons, and it really forms how you execute business on a day-to-day basis. And again, understanding what those people's drivers are that you're talking to. And we made it a commitment very, very early on to spend as much time that was needed. There was many times that I was up as early as the earliest superintendent walking job sites with them through rain, snow, to prove that I was there and willing to listen to them and be a part of their team to make their life a little bit easier. And I think that commitment to that engagement, and not just kind of handing them a printed manual and saying, here, have fun with this, we'll talk to you in a week, and then potentially getting upset with them when they weren't doing it the exact way we wanted them to do it. All those things were kind of drivers in creating that tone that matched up with our culture, and again, understanding the things that made projects successful, or the things, quite frankly, that were challenges moving forward on various projects, either through the type of project or through, but even potentially, how a client wanted us to deliver information. So if you could go ahead and move to the next slide, Scott. Bringing technology and people together has been discussed and talked about ever since I've been in the industry. And the idea that change is scary, yeah, I agree. But it's something that we have to get used to, and we have to make sure that everybody is aware that this is something that is going to be with us forever at this point in time, I think. I think that to a certain extent, our industry had blinders on in the maybe the early 90s, mid 90s, where it was okay to do what we had always done, be successful at it, and that change really wasn't going to affect us. And I think that, again, those presentations that I started attending in 2002, 2003 talked about change being, 90% sociological and 10% technological, or some breakdown thereof, is really just making sure that you're understanding the needs of the folks that you're trying to push. One of the things that, again, being excited and proud of was we were on a project that was an MOB project, and we had a superintendent that was within 3 or 4 months of retiring. And the project, he was going to retire basically kind of midway through the project, and he was working with bringing and onboarding another superintendent to take over for him as he was getting close to that retirement time. And he was, I don't want to say anti-technology, but he definitely, kind of fell into that "you're not going to teach an old dog new tricks" kind of mindset. And what was interesting is we acted like he was just a part of the team, and that he was experiencing it with us. And we were talking with the project engineers about how they were getting drawing sets and how they were managing it. And this is back in our original kind of field implementation, and how our project managers were managing submittals, RFIs, things of that nature. And we just talked to him as if he was already using it. And what was interesting is I showed up one day to do some training for some subcontractors, and he's walking around with an iPad in his hand, and I kind of gave him a little bit of a rib, and I said, "Hey, I thought you said that you were never going to be caught dead with an iPad in your hand." And his response actually kind of caught me off guard and surprised me, because again, I was kind of giving him a little ribbing, because he definitely delivered it to me in previous engagements. But he said, "You know what? I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the guy I'm training, because I see the value, and while I'm not going to be the one that takes advantage of the value because I'm too late in my career, the next guy is going to be the one that sees the benefit for it, and I want him to see me at least trying to use it." And I thought that was one of the most powerful stories that I have come across, because it shows that even if you don't get the person to respond, they can still believe in it, they can still participate in it, and they can help guide and mentor those that are kind of younger and less experienced than them. So we've been taking steps to kind of bring everybody together in BIM 360 Field Classic at the beginning, and understanding what that centralized library, that that kind of common data environment looked like. and then started to kind of reach out and broaden the use cases as much as possible. Safety and QA/QC were always kind of primary focuses to make sure that we were able to standardize across projects, the various audits, checklists, reviews, and that was a very heavily focused area when we first started in BIM 360. And it's been an amazing tool for us also to sell the relationship to the client, because it actually truly takes this, the idea of open book construction and transparency, and it leverages it. And our owners and our clients, even our future clients that we don't even have yet, as we start to talk about this, are responding very well to this, because they feel like they're a part of the project, and not just somebody that we're necessarily reporting to, that they have access to it. So we really pitched the idea of their iPad interaction with the various data points, whether it's RFIs, submittals, issues, and kind of the check-in on Sunday morning as they're having their Sunday morning cup of coffee. They can kind of see the status of their project. And I think that when you start to bring all these pieces together, when you have a construction company that is truly focused on, or a design company, I think this applies to both. But when you have people that are focused on delivering the best project that they can for the client, and they're seeing the client respond to this as well, again, you generate this excitement, this buzz, this momentum that starts to build behind ultimately how you are going to roll this out. It becomes much easier, and you start to overcome some of those maybe walls or hurdles that would have been thrown up in front of you during that implementation. Scott, if you can go to the next one. So kind of our lessons learned is introducing a pace and a rhythm at the beginning, and getting folks to understand that this is not an implementation that we're going to do from A to B. And then in that time frame, we're going to be working on change. And then after that, we're going to walk away, and we'll see you again in 2 or 3 years when new software comes out. And I think that that's somewhat of what they were expecting, because that's the way our past had been. Introducing that rhythm and that pace to say there's small changes, and if you take it in bite-sized chunks and get used to this, again, that pace, it's more easily consumable, it's easier to change, and it's going to be less impactful from a negative way, or a negative perspective, on your day-to-day life. And that idea that we're not going to leave and come back in 2 years. We're going to continue to kind of push this pace. It doesn't have to be blinding pace. And I think that, again, that was one of those lessons learned on my part when I first did the BIM and Revit implementation on the design side. There's a trail of dead bodies, that we pushed through, and we did it quick. We did it fast. We did at the time about 165 people across 4 offices and 14 projects, architectural, and then MEP engineering, landscape, interiors, all in 10 months, and converted to a Revit. And that was ignorance on my part of that. Pushing people that fast does not generally end well. And hopefully, again, learning those lessons and adapting a smaller, more steady pace. And I think that that's helped us digest this change as we've moved from BIM 360 Field and Glue to the next gen products, and then eventually moving to the unified Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. The other thing, again, is let the users define their own success, their own value, and giving them the ability to control it. I think it goes back to the kind of the hallmarks of mentoring, and making sure that they feel comfortable, that they have the right tools, the right access, they have a sense of freedom to explore it on their own, and they're not necessarily rigidly controlled. And I think that controlled is probably the bad word in that statement. When we have let our, what I would call, the kind of the old dogs, if you will, let them kind of dictate that is when we have seen, some of our best project examples, some of our best stories again, giving them that freedom to define that. And then, from our perspective, it was focus on the field first. So get that grassroots effort spun up, get that grassroots effort going, and again, defining it and using that old school high school psychology of wanting to be a part of the cool kids and allowing them to participate in that fun, really. And again, when you help a superintendent get home to dinner earlier than they have in the past, you're going to make friends. You're going to make believers out of it, out of the people that you work with. And the times that you can't, because you just can't overcome a technological challenge, or something's not working, and you're there with them, kind of walking through it. I think that, again, that gives you instant credibility and buy-in. Even like myself, if I came from the as the design side and came from the architectural side specifically, it showed that I understood construction a little bit better. I was aware of the challenges and was able to create those buy-ins and relationships easier, better, which was again, all good things. So Scott, if you could change the kind of the last slide here, again, the parting shot, if you will, of kind of what I want to say here is flexibility in your plan will help you drive successes. Evolve it, change it, and understand where those pressures to that plan come from, whether it's through acquiring new clients and their the new clients' kind of processes, how they affect your processes, or whether it's just doing the work that you do on a day-to-day basis more efficiently, more effectively, and how your people interact with it. So continue to evolve. Don't be so rigid that you can't flex. Give your users control of the sandbox. Kind of define the boundaries for them, but give them the control within the sandbox. And then give them the love. Just be there for them. Give them a shoulder to complain on or cry on, depending on how they interact with technology. And then when they are successful, celebrate their success. And we've been, I think, very successful in doing that at Danis, that it has never been a VDC focused plan. It's never been about the virtual design construction. It's never been about BIM. It's never been about the folks on my team, and it most certainly has never been about me and what I'm doing. It's about what our guys on projects are doing, because again, that's we built buildings, and this was actually a quote from one of our vice presidents that I truly hold dear, because I think it's beautiful in its statement, is that we built buildings long before there was accounting departments. We built buildings long before there were technology departments. We built buildings long before there was mechanical coordination departments, estimating departments, pre-con departments, and we surely built buildings long before there were VDC departments. And we will continue to build buildings and be successful at it. So understanding that and fitting in, I think, has been really how we have defined success, and kind of where I like to celebrate our win and continue to try to strive to evolve that implementation in the future years. Again, thanks for your time, Scott. That's what I had to talk about, and I think we can kind of open up for questions and answers if you like.
All right, sounds great. Great presentation, some really good information there. So let's go ahead and let's open it up to any questions here. I think I have the questions pane open. Let's bear with me a little bit here. There's a lot, there's a couple here. Let's see, there's a question here. Does BIM 360 also work on other tablets besides iPads? Yeah, that's a question for me. I can of course answer. It certainly works on both the Android OS and the iOS, for both of those in that cases. So there's another question here. So says, great perspective, Aaron. Do you have a super user at Danis or internal champion that helps you drive best practices for your tech tools? And if so, on the culture piece, do they help develop a Danis Corporation set of SOPs that your various project teams, I'm missing the last question there, let's see. That your various project teams can use as a go-to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that so we do have power users, I'll say, although we don't identify them as such here at Danis. So when I was at my former design firm, we had a set meeting of power users that we kind of met with on a bi-weekly, monthly basis, even during the early implementation process, weekly. And while we have kind of gone away from that at Danis, we definitely identify those same types of people, and it's kind of the idea of training the trainer. And what we want to kind of portray is that we're all kind of working towards that implementation. We're all trying to to can have input and guidance, but we definitely have those that we trust to go out and kind of help us be out there and help manage, help guide folks. As far as the culture perspective, it's to a certain extent a few of those power users or a few of those identified trusted people, but it's also finding those that have been here, have seen it, have gone through it, have lived it on various project types, and trying to bring them into the fold to get their perspective, and focusing on identifying those people that represent our culture, and then finding ways to get them involved on the standard operating procedure side. And I would say that that's one of those evolution pieces of our plan. At first, it was more feature function kind of set in the plan, and then after that it evolved and morphed as we started to roll this out to more and more projects and change from field to next gen, and all various phases of the implementation of BIM 360 field was identifying those others to bring into the group and find ways to engage them in the standard operating procedures.
Great, thanks. Another, and this is more of just a comment here, but I think it's worth mentioning, and just saying that Josh Jones here just said it was a great presentation and he loved the focus on the culture. And I think that was the key here really for this presentation, is more about not the technology, but the culture of how to implement this at a company, right? And I think Aaron put a great presentation together on that, because that is a big challenge. So this is some technology questions that I'm more than welcome to quickly answer here. Real quick, yeah, for where this works, it only works on the iOS and the Android OS. It does not really work in a Surface Pro, other than you can go to the web portal and still do those things, but it's really optimized for those tablets there. And again, this technology here, again, we're not talking about build here, but if there's a question asking about AutoCAD and AutoCAD architecture, it's primarily just Revit. There are ways to use AutoCAD in the BIM 360 docs environment and host the files there. I don't know, there'll be some challenges with AutoCAD architecture, but there probably is some possibilities there. Let's see here. Okay, so, oh yeah, here's a good one. So how do you tackle the influx of new and emerging tools on the market so that it's not a distraction, laser scanning, AR, VR, for example, but rather viewed as a way to improve and optimize the construction means and methods?
Yeah. So this is probably where I get into the most trouble with my group, the folks that support me, and the folks that work with me. I've been accused of flying at 30,000 feet as fast as possible and hair on fire, and looking for the latest and greatest tool or the latest and greatest toy to implement and bring into our firm. And what I had with me is a bit of a finding the balance and finding kind of my partner in crime, if you will. And I had a very definitive person, and hopefully a shout out to Vern Hendrickson if he is on. Sometimes he's on these things, but helped ground me and become a little bit more methodical when I was on the design side. And when I was moving into the construction side, I've had those folks here, project managers, project directors, that can say, give me the value. What's the value? And they ask, like 6 questions, and they force me to go back and think of it. We have laser scanning in-house, and it took us a while to get laser scanning in-house, but it was, developing business plans and chewing through it and making them really answer every question that could possibly come up and be, a lot more foolproof of a plan. I think that that's one of the things that I have changed about myself, hopefully. Hopefully the folks that work with me today at least see that, there's a little bit of controlled excitement about what our industry can be and do. We're always looking for, the thing that's going to make us better. I don't think you can get rid of that and be successful in today's age, but it definitely has to be more controlled. And I think that that's, one of the things that we're always going to struggle against. I'm always going to want to push against that brick wall harder than a lot of folks want to push against it. But I think that it's a balance. And each time we identify something, whether it's drones, 3D printers, CNC machines, laser scanners, robotic, whatever the technology you want to do, again, introduce pace. Don't let it stagnate in committee, but introduce pace and say, we're going to have a resolution to this by, X, and throw some dates out there, and then work towards beating that idea up as much as possible before implementing it. And then, fail and fail often, but get over it quick. Learn from it, move on. Kind of a lot of business cliches in that answer, I guess, but I try to live those as much as possible.
All right, great. Thanks. So another good question here. So what is your advice for attempting a try it approach for new software in a project environment? I work at an office where this approach is usually, let's try it once, see how it goes, but it can be difficult to see the potential of new software in one project. How do you get over the caveat when encouraging new software adoption, considering the benefits may not be realized until several projects have been completed?
Yeah. Again, this is, I've run into so many people that that do the try it and kind of dip their toe into the water, and it's, to me, it's a ripping off the Band-Aid approach, and I want to learn all of the various negative aspects of whatever it is I'm trying to implement as quickly as possible. We have within my group, and we have some license within the group to try a new idea out and quickly get to a resolution. So is this something that we want to continue to move forward, and do we want to do a broad-based implementation? The most successful implementations that I have been a part of are the ones that end up having almost an uncontrollable momentum to them. Once you, again, engage your foundational kind of people, get them excited about it, any of the things that might pop up get overrun really, really quickly, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. Sometimes you have to come back and clean up a little bit of the mess that might have been made. But I believe in momentum. I believe in excitement, and I believe in making sure that you have as many people a part of that as possible. So the try it and see approach hasn't personally worked for me. That's not to say that that's the case for all the other folks out there that are trying to implement new technology changes in different firms.
All right, great, thanks. Another question here. Excellent perspective. Can you explain how you may be creating the relationship between trades while using BIM 360 document management? I'm in the architectural world, so the GC may not be open to BIM 360. Any tips or perspectives on this?
Sure, yeah, definitely. Again, I try to default back to simple things, and the high school psychology always just, it works. So I have a three phase approach to this type of conversation. The first phase is show them the value to them. So if you're working with a GC and you're on the architecture side, or vice versa, if we're GCs working for the architects, working with the architects, or if we're working with subcontractors or manufacturers or suppliers, whatever the case would be, show them why there's value for them to be a part of whatever it is you're implementing. Here's how it's going to make your life easier. Here's how it's going to make your life better. Here's how we are going to do this together and really try to tell a story at the end of this project that both of us can be proud of, and that we both made money, that we both had successful projects, but let's tell a good story at the end of this. And there's going to be some pushback sometimes. Hopefully you get them on that hook. But the second phase of that is, okay, here's how it's going to benefit the project. Here's how all of us are going to benefit by you participating in this and doing this. Here's how we are going to collectively implement this, collectively benefit, and you try to put it in the larger context of success on the project. And if that fails, you move to phase 3. And you hope to never have to do it. I've only had to do it on a few occasions. But phase 3 is public humiliation. And what I mean by that is, in the middle of a meeting, when you are talking, maybe it's an OACM meeting, maybe it's a meeting in front of the client, you say, why are you unwilling to implement this process that's going to benefit the rest of the project team and yourself to really drive this project as best as we can? Why are you unwilling to participate in that? If you didn't catch them on 1, 95% of the time you'll probably catch them on 2, and hopefully you never have to use the 3rd. But it seems to work as a last resort.
All right. Great, thanks.
I'll
So
probably get in trouble for saying that.
And this might be a little related to that, but another one here is analysis paralysis tends to be the brick wall I meet with owners. How do you approach?
Yeah, so I think that owners are a tricky bunch. And I think that a lot of the implementation problems that we have run into, or historically that I've run into with owners, is us not setting the table correctly. If we are talking to an owner either at the interview stage or after we have been awarded a project about how we're going to execute on a project, we probably didn't do our job beforehand. You need to pre-educate. You need to get out there and talk about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it's going to benefit them, and have that as a part of not necessarily a project-specific thing, but showing them that value before projects even start or before they're in the RFP process, interview process, whatever the case may be. So I think that we have to make collectively, we as an industry have to do better at educating our owners, educating our clients about what is possible, what is efficient, what's effective, how their decision-making process affects our projects and ability to execute on that. And again, don't wait until the project is occurring, because then it just sounds like an excuse, or then it just sounds like it's a burden to them, depending on how it's it's perceived. So I think that getting out in front of the projects, educating them, and again getting it to boiling it down to what does it do for them? How does it help them? How does it help the project teams? How are we going to get a better project at the end of it? And I think that most of them, at least again historically that I've run into, respond well to that kind of delivery of the message. And then you can move beyond some of the analysis paralysis modes at that point in time, hopefully.
All right, great. Well, I think that was the last question. That's pretty good. We're getting pretty much close to the top of the hour. So again, I just want to thank you, Aaron, of course, for doing this presentation with us here at Imagine It. We truly appreciate it, and I feel like it was some really incredibly valuable information that I think all of us can use. So thanks. And with that, I think we can call it a day and close the presentation. So again, thanks everyone for attending. I'm really appreciate your time here. Goodbye.